Hey y'all, welcome back to the project, welcome back to the channel. If you have not been following along, this is a 1963 Volvo Amazon wagon that I bought about a week ago for $600. It hadn't run in 2 or 3 years. We pulled it out of the guy's driveway, got it home, we got it running that same day, we got it driving the following day, and then I drove it to work on the Monday after. It's now about a week later. We've had some issues with it. The transmission that was in here was no good. We put the second transmission in, that was also no good. And in this video, we find out whether the third transmission that we put in the car is any good or not. We also rebuild the drive shaft in this one. We do an oil change, we do a valve adjustment, and a couple other minor things as well, like paint the valve cover, which was totally unnecessary, but you know, it's worth it. Makes things a little nicer under the hood. Maybe another thing or two, I don't recall. I will tell you in advance, this is going to be a long video. I've had, 30 minutes here, an hour there to work on this car over the past several days. So I filmed a fair bit of work and then compressed it all down into one video. It's about a half hour long. Skip around, leave the comments what you liked about it, what you didn't like. Let me know if the flow of this project is working out for you or not. But yeah, as always, don't forget to like and subscribe. And like I said, drop me a comment and tell me what you think the next thing I should do on this car should be. Thanks for sticking around. Hope you enjoy the video. Already done a couple of things that I probably should have filmed, but they're pretty basic. So I'm not going to worry about it too much. Main thing was getting a valve adjustment done on this car. A lot of the valves, actually all of the valves, were out of spec. They should be about 16 thou. These ranged from like 24 thou down to like 0 clearance, so that's kind of not great. But they're all set to 16 thou. And the way you do this on this is extremely simple, just like most other stuff. Pull the spark plugs out so there's no compression, makes it easier to turn over. And you'll find there's a point where, let's look at number 1 here. You see how if I'm moving the radiator fan, how number 1, intake and exhaust both want to move? Well, when 1 and 4 are moving, the little tipping point, or the whatever you want to call it, number 4 back here, neither intake or exhaust is moving, so you can adjust that. Then you'll continue to spin the motor over, and you'll find a point where, there we are, where the intake and exhaust for number 4 go back and forth, but number 1 does not move, and you adjust 1, and do the same thing for 2 and 3. And to adjust these, I mean, if you've never adjusted valves before, then the basics of it are you loosen the lock nut here, put your feeler gauge between the rocker arm and the top of the valve, and then you can adjust the flathead adjuster here until you get a little bit of drag on the feeler gauge in there. So very, very simple. Just do that 8 times and then you're done. Since I had to take the valve cover off, I might as well clean it up and paint it. So we pull that off. Just use some Purple Power and some gunk to get that nice and clean. I'm gonna go back with a little bit of sandpaper here in a minute just to hit it, give it a little bit of a tooth. And then we're gonna prime and paint this with wrinkle black. So I'm gonna hit this with just a little bit of like 150 grit, like I said, just to kind of clean it up and give it some tooth there. And once I'm done with that, I will wipe it down with grease and wax remover. I've had good luck with that stuff just to get it nice and clean, and then we'll throw some primer. And there we go. That really just kind of took off the top layer of oxidation. Looks like crap. I'm going to wipe it down now. I'm not worried about the scratches. The wrinkle black paint is really, really thick, and it's going to cover all that pretty nicely. Alright, that stuff flashes off pretty quickly, but just to speed it up a little bit, I'm going to take it over here in the sun and set it down and let it get nice and toasty warm. I've also got my paint over here in the sun as well, warming up, because that stuff sprays on much better when it's warm, and a spare oil cap just to go in there to mask that surface. So the first step is going to be to prime this. I haven't used wrinkle paint a ton, but I have gotten pretty good results out of it before. I've always used this self-etching primer. It seems to bite the metal pretty well. I don't think it really matters what you use, but I have some of this. I've had good results with it, so this is what we're using. Alright, well that didn't take long at all. Even though it's pretty warm outside, I still like to use a heat gun to kind of kick it a little bit. I've found that using a heat gun with the wrinkle black actually does help quite a bit. Okay, so while I was editing that, I realized I was rambling on about painting a valve cover for way too long. You don't want to see that. There's no reason for me to show it. There's no reason for me to ramble about it. Just watch this little time lapse of spraying some paint, hitting with the heat gun, and making it So I think this is stopping point here. That's about the finish that I wanted. It's pretty even. I'm super happy with the finish on this thing. This is officially now the nicest part of the car. All right, so there are a couple of different ways to do U-joints. Well, I guess there's not really a couple of different ways. The way to do it, the right way to do it, is to assemble it all in the yoke. And then obviously I've taken the Zerk fitting out of here, put the Zerk fitting back in and grease it. And you're supposed to get grease out of all 4 caps. I've traditionally had trouble doing that, and all the tricks for getting them to seal and purge out the caps haven't really worked very well for me over the years. So what I usually do is I take the caps off. You want to be careful because there's the needle bearings in there and there's nothing holding them in other than just the factory grease. And I'd always glance down in there and make sure that they're oriented right. Take what I'm going to work with, set it somewhere. I would say set it somewhere clean. That's a bit of a joke in the shop at the moment. So we'll set it there, at least out of the way. Then I like to take some good grease and not fill, but put some grease down in this bearing cup, just so that when I mash it onto the trunnion, it's going to get smushed around. I will also grease it with the Zerk fitting, but it makes it a little bit easier. But I'm going to put the trunnion in first, and then put the cap onto the trunnion. There we go. And put this together. We started. Try and get it started. Damn it. Trunnion fell out again. And it feels weird again now. Back out. Most of putting U-joints in is literally just holding your mouth right. Okay. That's what I want to see there. So now we'll try and move this a little bit here with the vise. Let's start to move. Oh! Nope. Picked up some schmoo on the trunnion now. Still feels okay. Alright, we're going to call that good and started. Trying to wipe the dirt off the trunnions and hit the ground there. The frustrating part is, I don't know if you can tell on video, the way that the U-joint cap goes in, this is actually not perfectly square, so it's hard to press in the vise because you don't have a flat surface to press on. The yoke of the drive shaft, or the yoke on the drive shaft side, I should say, is easier because everything there is flat and square. So yeah, same thing for this cap. Give it a little bit of grease, or a lot of grease, whichever. Start that cap there. Now, because the cap is protruding, the cap is square and flush, so we'll start to tap that in. Very nice. Alright, so now I can press these together. Oops. There we go. Try and do this so you can see it. And it doesn't really want to move without flexing the yoke, which is, less than ideal. So, all right, we're just gonna tap it together, which is kind of what I'd hoped to avoid, but that's what this thing wants to do. So that's what we'll do. Fuck it. All right, so at this point, I should be able to slide the trunnion from left to right. It's, I can work against the grease, and it's nice and seated in both. Hopefully I didn't get it out of the needle bearings on the right. Oh no. Nope, it's fine. All right, so put it about in the middle there. And now I'm gonna send the upper one home. I'm gonna use a socket to tap this side in until it gets past the circlip groove right there. Get that in there. Just a little more. There we go. All right, so that circlip is down and in the groove. Now that that's not going to move, we'll flip it over and we'll tap this side in. Again with a new circlip. A little bit shy on this back edge. Oops. So right on this back side here. So I'm going to tap it on this side. And it wants to go. Maybe I just didn't clean the groove out. Alright, pop the circlip back out. Let's see what's up here. The groove is actually a little damaged back in there. It's hard to see. No, you can see right there. So that's kind of mashed in. So I'm going to put the open part of the circlip there, and then the rest of it will hopefully have a good groove to sit in. There we go. Okay. Now that's clipped in. Now we're going to take and do basically the same operation, but on the drive shaft. Just for now, I'm going to put this in the vise. Just kind of hold it. And we'll do the same thing we just did, just a little bit more cumbersome.
I don't understand why this freeze gun doesn't fit, Steve. I don't understand why sometimes it gets a nice good pump and sometimes it just doesn't. Alright, that's enough freeze for that.
And we'll do the same thing that actually worked last time, so we'll put the trunnion in here. We'll put a cap on there. That's in. Give it some taps. Went in like butter. So now turn this around. Hopefully we get the same treatment for this cap. That's nice and easy. Tapping can tend to bump the needle bearings around, so really whenever possible I do like to press them together. I could use, like, you know, the actual press for this, but it's on the other side of the shop. It's having a particularly easy time going. Right, we're lined up. Alright, fuck it, hammer time. There it is. And the U-joint seems to slide nice. So I don't think we got a I don't think we got anything out of place. Okay, so same thing. Socket here, and we're going to tap tap until, whoa, that was easy. Okay. Cool. All right, one circlip in. It's good.
Flip it over. Tap taps here.
And that circlip went in nice. This U-joint is actually, I mean, I know it's hard to tell on video, but this U-joint is very tight. It should be much smoother than that. A trick an old mechanic taught me to loosen that up is to take your ball peen hammer, give it a couple taps right here on the yoke. This way, so try the same thing here. Much better. Cool. And that's how you put U-joints in a drive shaft. Only took me 20 minutes. Really, it should have been quite a bit quicker, obviously, but you know, skill issue. So, the last thing I'm going to do, well, the last thing I'm going to do at the bench right now, before I clean it, is don't forget to put your Zerk fitting back in. It's easier said than done because now your hands are covered in grease and everything is slick. You can use a socket to tighten it down. It doesn't have to be gorilla tight, obviously, but you know, just snug it up there. And at least try and feed it a little grease. I mean, I grease these pretty well. Oh, here we go. See, this is what I mean. I've got grease purging out of 2 seals, but not. No, my grease gun's giving up. So I've got really just 1 seal purging, which is kind of what I predicted, which is not what you want. But because I've filled the cups with grease before the install, I'm not worried about that. So yeah, 20 minutes to put a U-joint in. Should certainly be quicker than that if if one knew what they were doing. But like I said, I'm a moron. So there we go. Alrighty, so the next order of business is to get this bearing into this bearing housing. Should be pretty straightforward. Really, could just knock it in with the hammer, but we got the press, so. Even though ultimately this would have been the right way to do the U-joints as well, but like I said, I've always used a hammer and sockets in the past, like you saw, and I've never messed up a drive shaft before. And then this time when I try to take everything apart, I try to use a press, and that's when I messed it up. So I'm a little gun shy now for using U-joints, or the press for U-joints. But this should, there we go, slot right in. Nice there. Whoops. And it has just occurred to me that this bearing is designed in a way that it actually needs, I need to support it on the edges. So let me find my other press point. And we'll set this up so that the inner part of the bearing doesn't bottom out and break something. You can tell that Harbor Freight quality how level these press plates are. That might be about it.
Let's see. Yep. That's not perfect. Oh.
We'll bump it just a hair more. There, now it's stopped. Alrighty, now that's nice and even. we got a fresh drive shaft support nut. And the final order of business is to get this bearing on. It goes on that way with the pins facing forward. And we put our spacer washer on here. Spoiler, I don't know if this is right. This is just the way that it came off. That ring on there. And then we'll spin the retainer nut on. This retainer nut does not need to be like gorilla tight. Just fairly snug. So, and honestly, it was essentially hand tight when I took it apart. But yeah, we're gonna call that good. Alrighty. Oh, I did forget one thing. This is actually like a locking tab, so we do need to bend that over.
Yeah, what the hell, we'll do another side of it too.
Alright, now that nut will come off. If we were doing like a restoration on this thing, I'm sure I would be a bit more fastidious about it, but we're not doing a restoration. We're making it run and drive. So, here's our assembled drive shaft, ready to go back in under the car. Ordinarily, it is important to like mark orientations of all this stuff and alignment because it's all balanced as one unit. But since we swapped the front half around, so it's a different front half with the original back half, the only thing that I'm going to worry about is U-joint phasing. I'm not even going to bother with having it balanced. There's going to be enough other NVH in the car that I'm not going to worry about a little bit of driveline center. So yeah, let's slide into the car. And under here, these are the two little rubber bushings that hold the pins for the drive shaft support, and they are rotten and falling apart, as you can see. So these are going to have to come out, and new ones are going to go in. Surprisingly, these are actually still available in a Volvo bag with a Volvo part number for $3 a piece. So that'll work. Looks like maybe the part that's more domed goes towards the front. Where do my bags go? Here we go. And if anybody's curious, that's the Volvo number, 658653 of the bushing. And it does not really appear to be directional, so.
This is fun.
And I know somebody in the comments is going to say, oh, just put a little bit of oil on it. That'll help. Maybe. It would also be messy and shitty, and then my hand would be slipping everywhere. So we're going to try it with no lube first. Going in dry. And if this doesn't work, then we'll spit on it.
Okay, here's one. Let's do the other. Far easier to take the old one out than it is to put the new one in. But that's expected.
Alright, and now we're ready to slide the drive shaft in there. Alright, the next part with the drive shaft, you're just going to have to kind of bear with me here, because the only place to set the camera up is exactly where I need to be working. So much rust and grease. It's almost like the car's 60 years old or something. You could about forget about putting a bigger drive shaft in this car. I mean, people have done it, obviously. I mean, Andrew's done it. More dirt to the face, it's always fun. Try and get this in here without not messing it up too bad. There's one.
Hopefully you can still see. Oh, that was my drive shaft. Okay. Alright, a little bit more. We'll pull that together with bolts.
Alright, cool. So that's in. I guess I'll move the camera around a little bit, hopefully get a better angle, or a workable angle, and we'll bolt it in. Alright, moment of truth. Let's see if this thing jumps out of gear still. I'll put a little bit of drag on it with the e-brake. There's first, second, third, fourth. Cool. Cool, and we're getting ready to take it for a test drive, but then I realized that the oil in here is super black, so I do have what I need to change it, but it really does run well. But yeah, we just got it warming up for a minute. I'm about to shut it off, and then we'll get to the oil change.
Black as midnight. Jeez. Not chunky though, so that's a plus, I guess.
And honestly, this is the first time I've been underneath the front end. Let me grab the camera and we'll have a look around here while that's draining. Alright, so just some points of interest. First thing is this alternator bracket. That looks extremely homemade and a little janky. So we'll probably need to address that at some point. Looks like the steering box has some grease or oil or something leaking out of there. I don't know. Actually, I don't know if that's supposed to be filled with oil or pumped up with grease or what. Let's see. Bushings. I got bushings coming apart there. Engine mounts cracking. Not horribly rusty. I mean, there's some definite surface rust on stuff, but not awful. Basically, every ball joint, every tie rod end no longer has a boot. A couple over here actually do. Sway bar end links are cracked, falling apart. Radiator hose is present. Looks about 40 years old. What else here? Somebody replaced the shocks at some point, but obviously that's going to have to get redone. That's interesting. So a little bit of rust starting around in here. Maybe I'll wire that off and treat it. But yeah, just kind of the general grease and grime that you would expect. Oh, looks like we got there's an oil pressure switch and an oil pressure sender there. And the sender has a wire that doesn't go anywhere, so that's neat. Yeah, okay. I can work with that. And I'm not going to film it because the angles are weird and it's tight under there, but we are going to put on a man filter. I've used these for years and literally never had a problem with them, so here we go. All right, the drain plug is back in, tightened. We got a new filter on, pre-filled that, and now we're going to put in 4 quarts of the finest motor oil to ever grace the planet, Shell Rotella T415W40. This stuff is like the Frank's Red Hot engine oil. Put that shit in everything.
On the bikes on it, and truck on it. About the only 2 vehicles. Oh, I guess I have faith in that alcohol gas. About the only 2 vehicles I don't use it on are Bailey CRV and my R. Looks like I put about, what's it again? Oh, it's again. Okay, so it gets the whole thing. I thought it was 5 quarts for some reason. But yeah, the CRV and the R, they both get what the book calls for. But everything else is so old and such a piece of crap that it gets the cheapest thing on Walmart shelves.
And that is $15.40. Put a little bit of oil on that seal so it's not totally. Alrighty, all buttoned up and we are ready to hit the road for a test drive. So I'm going to call that success because we are in 4th gear right now, just cruising along, and probably speedometer doesn't work, probably 40 miles an hour or so, and absolutely no issues. So yeah, big thanks to Dave, appreciate the hookup on the transmission. Big thanks to Mike, appreciate the hookup on the drive shaft, because we are back in business, man. This feels good. This is 62 mile an hour. 60, 62, somewhere in there. And honestly, I think this is about all she'll do. I mean, I'm sure it'll probably go 70 on a downhill, but yeah, this is about as much as a 4-speed's got. So, yep. Hey y'all, thanks for sticking in there. I know that's a long video, a lot of work in there, a lot to digest. We still have a long way to go on the project, but it's a really good feeling having a car that's at least, I'm not going to call it roadworthy, but we'll call it drivable. With the transmission working correctly, brakes working correctly, engine's running good. We still have plenty of work to do on this thing, mechanically and cosmetically and structurally. So there will be plenty of projects left. Stick around. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe, and drop a comment and let me know what you think I should work on next. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.